Welcome to the Fit Affiliate Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Kirkman, and sitting alongside me is Tony Ronke, the founder of Fit Affiliate and all-round CrossFit OG. The mission of Fit Affiliate is very simple: protect the affiliate model. Our sole purpose is to help affiliate owners and coaches attain freedom. We aren't here to tell you what to do, but to instead build your ability to believe in yourselves. Enjoy the show. So we've got a piece where I heard from an affiliate owner through the week where they're, what are you offering? Well, I just sell CrossFit. And they were a little confused about the message I think that we have put on the podcast, because they are like, well, you say don't tell people about the burpees and the thrusters, but then how are you supposed to show what you do without talking about those things? So there's that aspect. And then we did a really interesting post this week about sales, and that overcoming sales is skill, not feeling like it's just an icky thing that you're doing. So those two things kind of overlap. And then we have a value conversation, which appears to be, the buzzword at the moment is like conveying your value, and how price is linked to value. So you gave the example of a house. If I offered you a house for 10K, you're going to go, cool, I'm going to take that. 50K, yeah, I'm probably still going to take it. 100K, I might want to see the house first, but I still think it's a good deal. So all of those things are kind of linked in about how we're communicating our value, but not feeling icky about sales. And how do we have those conversations? Just dump the whole basket.
Minutes, so
yes.
I guess I should start right from here. Well, yeah, where do I start? There's a lot of different things to start with there. Well, first of all, obviously, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know that I personally enjoy sales, or like sales.
And are very good at it.
The main reason, I mean, that's to be debated sometimes, but the main reason I like it is that I don't view it as sales at all. I view sales mostly as conversational. I view it as transformational rather than transactional. And I think that most people, first and foremost, view sales the opposite. They view it as transactional, and that you are going to ask somebody for money for something that otherwise probably or likely comes very easy to you. And so there's a fair amount of guilt in terms of the transactional nature that is like, I'm going to take this thing that I don't think is that difficult and then sell it to you for what I think is already too much money, and then hope that you pay it. And like, yeah, that would feel incredibly icky, I suppose. And I think that most people probably likely think that sales is icky, but I think that it's a very easy reframe. Reframe is not even really the right word, because reframe, I think, for most people feels like personal mental manipulation. I think that that's what reframe has become now synonymous with, but it really just becomes a rethinking of sales, because, well, first and foremost, it's an absolute necessity. I mean, it's as much breathing to your business as anything. So there's no way for you to not do it. So if we know that is an eternal truth, that gives you two options. You either A, need to rethink and relearn how you do it, or hire someone else to do it. Like that's the only real two options.
And I think that in the space, like you rarely hear from the gurus and the people that are filling your inbox about, learn to do better sales, sell better in, 10 steps and not talking about sales as a transformational process, as in understanding how what I'm offering you has the power to transform your life. And it does go beyond the burpees and the thrusters and the black mat goodness that we fill our spaces with. But I think that is overlooked in the conversation. And you're right. We talk about sales can be a manipulation rather than coming at it from a place of a conversation of inspiration and inspiring someone to act, rather than, if I just give you 2 for 1, then you're just going to buy it.
Well, right. Yeah. So there's a couple of things in there that I think are important. The first thing is that we have to start with one thing you brought up in the beginning, which is, talking about what you do versus how you're going to do it, or why you do it, or burpees and thrusters and features and et cetera. I think in order for us to effectively rethink and shift to a transformational conversation or process versus a transactional one, it starts with understanding what business you're in, right? Like, I think one of my favorite questions always to ask on the consults and when with affiliate owners especially is like, what would you say business you're in? And unsurprisingly, but semi-comically, they all say the same thing, right? It's some degree of CrossFit. Yeah, so CrossFit, maybe they say fitness. That's probably the second most common. Sometimes they say things like classes, which is,
Yep.
I know that's them stretching to say something that they don't actually know the answer to. So they're like, maybe classes, right? But like, and to be fair, I can't answer that for you. You tell me what business you're in. But here's the thing with CrossFit in general is that no affiliate by design actually sells CrossFit. You do it, you use it, it's the tool, it's the resource that you will deploy to provide the product. But generally speaking, um, the business that you're in is solutions, right? In that, and I think we all get this. I think that we understand that, like, the point of doing CrossFit is to arrive at a different future state than the current one that you're in. Like, that would be the ideal goal. So therefore, that is the actual thing that you sell. You sell the reward, right? You sell the destination. You sell the success. You don't sell the work, right? Like, when I take my car, we've talked about this. When I take my car because it's broken, I don't sell you how I'm going to fix it. I just sell you that you're going to pick up a fixed car. Right. Like, and in my mind, I think about all the fun things I'm gonna be able to do once my car is fixed. Because right now, my reality is that I can't do anything. I can't even get to work. I can't get to the grocery store because my car is broken. Right. So just like, I don't care how many wrenches and how many turns of the bolt and how much oil or how many parts you're gonna like. I care because I don't want to necessarily pay a lot of money, but like, if that's what I need to have my car fixed, like, just sign me
what I
up.
need.
But that in of itself, like, is not really a good example because taking your car to the shop is truly transactional, right? Like, because it's binary, right? Car broken, give me it back fixed. I don't want it to be degrees of fixed. Like, I'm not taking it to you to be like, let's fix it plus, let's add a few hundred horsepower, right? But if let's just say I owned a garage and I didn't want to be like other garages, because I think we agree that most mechanics don't necessarily live the life of affluence that we are in fact aspiring to, right? So like, if I wanted to create what we call a blue ocean garage or mechanic, maybe I would employ a strategy in which point I would sit down and talk with people, when their car is broken. And, maybe through talking, I realized that, like, hey, I think it would be better if, like, I just help you get out of this car. And let me just sell this thing for you for pennies on the dollar. Let's get you into the right car. Cause like, everything you're saying to me right now sounds to me like you need a pickup truck more than you need this tiny little sedan. So like, even if I fix it, you're going to be limping it along because you're trying to figure out how to get plywood in the back because you're a contractor, right? And you could truly create an entirely different level of service, an entirely different level of value, and also decrease your expenses as a business owner, right? Because like, if I don't actually have to fix your car, and I can, just by having a conversation, I've been able to be like, okay, Lisa, let me just sell that car for you because I actually have a buyer for this car. And like, you could make so much more money. But I don't know if that example lands truly. It is home. So, but it's the truth, right? It applies to every affiliate that I know. There's two options with a new person coming in, right? There's the option that is, I can sit you down and I can tell you why we're the best CrossFit gym in town and why we're the best ever to it. And I can list out all the equipment I bought this week and all the accolades and all the accreditations of all of my coaches. And I can tell you, how clean my bathroom is because I've been told that that's supposed to matter. And then I can give you a tour of the gym and I'll give you a free trial class. Right? There's that option, which I think most of us lump into that option. Or
Been there.
I can sit down with you and tell you nothing about what I'm going to do because it doesn't matter until I know what it is that you in fact need. And then I let you tell me what brought you in today, and then explain to me why that's important to you. And then explain to me why that's in the way of a better future and a better life and your ideal future and your quality of life. And let you explain those things to me. And then I say, great, perfect. I can help you with that. How's tomorrow sound? it doesn't really matter what you do. And I think we all get very confused by this, but here's the catch in that nuance. Option one is a training business. Option two is a coaching business. And the catch here is that if I sit most affiliate owners down, they will tell me that they are in the coaching business and that they do coaching and they provide coaching. But if you listen to this podcast enough to know the difference between training and coaching, you know that I'm probably going to tell you that you're in the training model, especially if your version of sales looks a lot more like, here's what we do here. Here's how our program is. How's all people I've sent to the games. Here's all my coaches, level 4, level 3, level 2, and level 1s. Here's the number of classes we have. Here's how our programming is designed. And here's how much equipment and how big our space is. Want to take a tour? You're a training program, because instead of sitting down and asking them what they need and helping them understand the picture of the future they're trying to arrive at, that, let me be very clear, they probably have no idea what that feels like, but you can explain it to them because you've probably lived that example. If instead of doing that, you open your mouth and you try to teach them why you're better than the other affiliate in town, you're a training program. And the reason why that matters is that we also know one other unfortunate truth, and that is that a lot of affiliate owners are focused on an important metric, which is retention. Like, we know that people leave the gym quicker or sooner than we would like them to leave. And your retention metric is a direct measure of the fulfillment of the product that you sell. That's it. So if you have a higher level of retention, or if you have a higher attrition, I should say, meaning a high number of people who quit, that's a very clear indication that the product that you're providing is very different than the product that you sold them. And so when you sit down, you tell them, I'm going to sell you, I'm going to do coaching, but then you do training. They don't need to know the difference between it. But when there's a training program, they're going to look around and they're going to see that, like, I can get this same thing from many different places. And then, so if there's anything that upsets them, frustrates them, like even just like a change in the schedule, or an unfortunate time, or like they find out that their friends all go to their gym, they're just going to switch gyms and they're going to quit, right? But if they're on a coaching program and you deliver coaching, they're not going to find that in many other places. They're likely going to stay a lot longer.
I had a conversation with a gym manager the other day talking about retention and their focus and how to improve their retention. And their focus was very much, well, we need to get the coaches upgraded to, L2s, L3s. And the conversation I kept asking the question is like, is that improving your member experience? And it was an interesting shift in the conversation to get them to understand that it's not just about teaching, seeing, correcting. It's about even the basics. Did you say their name? Were coaches gossiping in front of members? Do you know the member story? Can you follow through on that and have those conversations as in a, how are you, versus a, they didn't feel like someone corrected their squat today. And when we talk to owners and coaches about retention, that's what it usually comes back to. It's like, oh, well, we coach we teach the butt off them on the floor. But really, when you have that coaching relationship, it's an actual relationship, and it's a lot harder for people to go, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and do that at the place down the road. Because they might go and have a look at the place down the road. It's like, hang on a minute. They're not asking me the same questions. Hell, I didn't even get my name on the whiteboard yesterday. All of those sort of things. And it is very a really profound difference once you've experienced that.
Well, now you're dragging me into a conversation about retention versus sales, but it is an important part of the conversation, or important part of the context of sales, though, is that you have to be very clear on the product that you're providing, because if you're not, then you're probably going to be very clear on the manipulation that you're relying on, right? And so in business, it's simple. You can either manipulate or you can inspire. Both of them will create action. And most businesses rely on manipulation to get people started. And that, just so we're clear, that looks like things like unlimited memberships, discounted rates, free week, you name it, because those are things to do to get them to take action. Those are not inspiration. Yes, you might actually manipulate them into inspiration and getting them to take action, but like, let's just not nickel and dime this thing. But like, inspiration is very different, which is getting you to believe in yourself. right? And so if I sit down with you, and anybody who's been through the fortunate process of sitting with me, the thing that ends up happening, Lisa's like, it ain't fortunate. The thing that ends up happening is that I ask you to get me to believe in you, right? And like that's the whole point of each one of the initial consults. And if you can get me to believe in you, then you're in trouble, because at that point you're partnered with me until that transfer of belief is back. And that's, in my opinion, is very inspirational. It's getting you to believe that, like, oh wow, this person believes in me. And like that should be what's happening. And we all, like every affiliate owner and every coach loves to, recite the talking points that comes out around like all these things. And we do all this stuff and health and, life changing, and CrossFit's bigger than this and blah, all these things. But then our actions don't necessarily align with that. Like there's a big conflict. There's a big chasm between the product that we provide, we being the affiliate model, and the product that we believe in. And we know CrossFit can change lives. We know in the power of effective coaching and in transformation, but we get so confused by the minutia and the nuance that is our education and our information that we've acquired, that we think that what we need to do is recite all of that to somebody because we know how important all those details are. But those are your tools in your toolbox inside your garage that you're going to use to fix cars. Nobody really cares about how sparkly clean your new Snap-on, wrench is. And that's not to say that it's not a valuable wrench. It is, because you know just how much work that thing can do. It's just that the person who's coming to you isn't coming to you with an expectation of being told those things. But I already know what most of you guys are saying is like, well, that's actually not true, because a lot of people have sat down and asked me, like, what's your programming like? How many days a week? And here is the most important part. Because most CrossFit gyms are training gyms, meaning they sell their program, they sell CrossFit as a program. Most people who have done CrossFit know to shop for CrossFit, to shop for a training program. And so they come in and they ask training-based programs. How many days a week are you open? How many classes do you have? What's your programming like? How many heavy days do you do? Right? They start asking, and that's how we start explaining it. And because we were really good in that conversation, because like they speak CrossFit and I speak CrossFit, so we could do shop talk to each other. That feels good. And so when Susan comes in, who's got no exposure to CrossFit, we start talking to her like we did to Johnny, who came in without his shirt on, right? And she's like, I don't want any of that. And as an owner, you're flabbergasted, because you're just like, you don't understand. I'm telling you right now, it'll change your whole life. Yeah, because being in the hospital will definitely change my whole life. And that's exactly what will happen if you make me fall on the ground and get back up. Right? Like, and as an affiliate owner, you're just like, I can't communicate. Like, you lose your ability to communicate. And so you hope that through experience or through a trial or through some degree of exposure, you're just going to get it. And sometimes it works, but I think we could probably measure the average closing rate, meaning the number of people you close into a program of a gym collectively across the board and in CrossFit. I bet you is probably on the low side of like, let me remove the number of already existing CrossFitters from this conversation. So the close rate of new people who have never done CrossFit in your gym, I would probably wager, unless you're good at sales, is probably on the low side of 30% or lower, meaning your ability to convince a new person who's never done CrossFit and they don't have a family member or otherwise in the gym that they should try CrossFit. And you try to sell them that way, it's probably not going to go well. And that feels very transactional, and that feels very icky. And so you need to result to inspiration. And that requires one simple thing, and that's a conversation.
And I think back to, hundreds of consults that I did. And I remember I'm doing this is what we do, and this is come and show you the ropes and the barbells and things. And people, like, when you think back and you're not tuned into it at the time, do have the deer in the headlights. Be like, I just need you to sign this direct debit form and we are away. Like, we're going to make this thing happen. Whereas sitting down, and I remember how prior to each meeting it would be stressful and have to think about all the things. But then when I had this awareness through working with a coach and being coached of how to have these better conversations, it was a far more pleasant experience for me, and no doubt for them as well, where we were sitting down just having a conversation as humans, and that asking them questions that they've probably never ever been asked before, because people are so used to going to Globo gyms where they're just going to ask me questions, but they're not really going to actually care about the answer, and they're just ticking the form, and they smile and say, "Hey, Lisa," when you go through the door, but that's just because my name popped up on a swipe screen. Like, it's all those things. So they get a little bit jaded to that sort of stuff. But if you can do that in a genuine, authentic way, because you do actually care, because it is actually what you do, and I'm invested in you as a human, then it becomes a much more pleasant experience and much easier to do in the long run. Way less stress. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to have conversations today with people and learn about this person. If you come at it from a aspect of genuine curiosity, so like, I know you as a person, you are curious about the person who sits in front of you. You want to know what makes them work, what makes them tick. And if you approach the person sitting in front of you with like, I just want to see what's behind here, like what makes you tick, it's actually can make the whole process fun and, super less. You don't walk away from it going, hopefully they don't see that what I just sold them was a bag of, stuff that we're not really going to deliver on most of that. You just come out of it feeling good, because whether they buy or not, you've had a positive interaction with somebody that will stay with them for sure.
I mean, there's a lot to say about that. Well, first of all, I get it. I mean, I love sales and I did it too, right? Meaning when you are new in this, and I blame a lot of it on OG, and it was the early days, and it was just we kind of all had this false arrogance or pride that, like, I don't know, we could do something better or different or whatever. But like, yeah, I was so bold as to think that, like, I was prideful that we didn't even have a sign in the building. We were like Fight Club. If you found us, you belong here. Like, and you just came in the door, and like there was no sales process. Like, you came in, I was like, prove it, prove that you belong here. Like, and that was kind of the thing. And like, hilarious, I suppose, but in hindsight, and I get that part, right? But when you're new in the game, when you're new in CrossFit, particularly, like, you're a trainer, like you're only capable of training. It takes a long time to get to coaching, because you have to get past that whole that chaotic beginning, that messy middle where you open your mouth and words fall out, right? And you just try to word vomit all over everybody. And that's the case for most affiliates and most coaches, where they're just like, they worry about getting all the talking points and all the regurgitation. But here's the thing about CrossFit, and it will take a long time for this to click. And like, this just happened to Matt before he's going to sit for his L4, is that like, it finally hit him. He was like, oh my gosh, it finally occurred to me. And I was like, welcome to the party. And that is that CrossFit's never been a training program. It's always been an assessment program, meaning it's always been the perfect tool to better understand people. All of the objectives and all the quantification, all the metrics have always mattered, because it allows us to figure out where you're at and help us evaluate what we need to do to get you to where we know you need to be. It's never been about needing to teach you the 9 foundational movements, the points of performance, all the talking points, all those things. That's the stuff that matters when you're a trainer. But the point of getting training done really well, or the point of training really well somebody is to assess them. And like that's when you make the shift into coaching. And so the L4, I think for any coach, it's like, how do you go L1, L2, L3 trainer, but then all of a sudden L4, you're a coach? But the thing is that in the L4, the people who fail your L4, they go in and try to teach everything. They try to teach it perfectly, and they fail it every time, because they teach to the room instead of look for what's in the room, right? And then and that's a big important part of it. And we're not talking about that now, but one thing you did say in the beginning is, if I improve my member experience, things are going to get better. You absolutely will improve your member experience by climbing the levels in CrossFit. The question is, why does that matter? And what it matters to is getting you to the point where you sell and provide coaching. And so the vast majority of affiliates do in fact sell training, and they might only ever sell training. And they should stop trying to sell coaching, and they should continue to sell in the conversation of, here's what we do here, here's how we do it, here's why we're better. What would you
Mm.
like to buy? 3 times a week, 5 times a week, and stick to that. Because if those people that run their business that way try to speak to coaching and sell it, they're going to have a huge retention problem, a huge attrition problem, I should say, meaning number of people who quit, not retention.
Mm.
And they're also going to de-edify and de-platform all the actual coaches out there, because the vast majority of people think that a coach and a trainer are the same, and therefore they want to almost pay the same for them. But in terms of inspiration, you've got coaching. Not that training can't be inspirational. It's just that training is so much more commoditized. Like, a program isn't worth much. CrossFit has been free since forever. Therefore, if you're trying to sell CrossFit, you have an uphill battle. You're going to have to compete with every other CrossFit gym. You have to compete with everything that looks and feels and smells like CrossFit, even though it's not CrossFit. You're going to have to tell everybody why they're better, and they probably don't care. They only really care what it's going to do to them. So you got to move yourself towards coaching. So in regards to this whole thing, coming back to sales as opposed to like the quality of service you provide, you have to basically understand one simple thing, and as it applies to sales. You don't have to tell them anything about what you're going to do. In fact, I would almost argue that you should never tell them what you're going to do, because if you do, you're lying. And if you're lying, you're manipulating them. Because if I sat you down without ever seeing you move, watching you move, or doing anything, and I said, here's what I'm going to do for you, how do you know? It's impossible. You could never know, right? I don't know if you can squat below parallel. I don't know if you can lock your arms out overhead. I don't know if you can walk around the gym without getting out of breath. Like, I can make a lot of assumptions based on what you look like, and I can tell you maybe what you want to hear, but I can't say with certainty. It just doesn't matter. But what does matter is, I know, without even knowing you, that if you use CrossFit and you do CrossFit, and CrossFit is a service that you engage in and a tool that you use, you will change every single person's life who sits down across from you. But that doesn't mean they need to know how you're going to do it. They don't even care. What they care is that they can believe in you. And that starts with you being able to figure out if you can believe in them. And so if you open your mouth and you start talking about how you're going to do all these things, they don't hear why they can believe in you. All they hear about is, like, you say burpee, they say, I can't do that. You say squat, you say, I don't squat. You say run, they're like, did you say, what did you just say? Did you say the R word? I got to go, right? Like, so all they hear every time you say something is they hear all the other times in their life they failed at running, all the other times they failed at squatting, all the other times they failed at nutrition. And you just lose them every time. Instead of just saying, like, got you, how's tomorrow? Okay. And then we get to work, and I start watching you and learning, and then we just start applying.
And it's really hard to sit there in that moment until you've done it a few times with, I see you, I've got you, let's get to work. Because people ultimately, and you're right, they just are interested in the solution or the benefit or what's in it for me. I mean, when we go to a doctor with a pain, we don't care how he's fixing the pain. We just like make the pain go away. And it's when people are coming to your gym, particularly people who've had no exposure to anything, they're usually in some form of pain. And no one's ever asked them really, well, where does it hurt? And why does it hurt? And why is it important that we fix this? And I believe that we can fix this, rather than just going, okay, well, what are you going to, why haven't you done anything about it in the past? Or, and usually, like, people are aware of where they're at. But then you get into that, as you said, that whole failure conversation, where then they start to be reminded of where they failed and why it was on them. It's like, well, we're going to do this together now. And you're going to be successful because you've got myself and a whole team on your side, which is very different to just, well, I've just got to figure this stuff out again, I guess.
I mean, imagine if you went to the doctor's office and or if your doctor's office looked like a Chinese restaurant where they had, like, the pictures of all the foods, because nobody can say the food names. So, like, you just put pictures of all the
I'll have a
symptoms.
number 9.
And you had to choose your doctor based on, like, the quality of their photos. Like, you choose your Chinese restaurant. Like, that is the unfortunate truth that ends up becoming the reality of most gyms, is that, they try to tell you about the product. But imagine, like, the reason you go to a doctor, the reason you trust your doctor, is because if you went in and the doctor just said, here's what I'm going to give you today, and then they decided if it was in fact what you needed, you'd be like, this seems backwards. Or like, if you said to me, here's what we're going to do, blah, 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 I think the natural inclination, anybody who's sitting there with you is going to be like, how do you know that's going to work with me? And you're like, oh, because it's worked with everybody. They're going to be like, dick.
Or you're going to say, that sounds really unpleasant.
We're not going to say, I don't think they're going to say it sounds unpleasant, because I think everybody's toxic trait is that they think that they can do it. But I think ultimately they think that like, you don't care about me. Right? Like if you tell me about what you did for everybody else and how much that's worked for them, that doesn't say anything about how much you care about me. Right. And so the reason why sales matters so much, is moving on with the sales conversation, is that if you provide coaching and not training, you need to speak to that and demonstrate that, because the point of sales, first of all, is that if you've been here long enough, you know that we believe that coaching in and of itself is just simply sales, because it's just simply transformation, and it's just the transfer of belief. And so in order to be a great coach, you're going to have to be good at sales, because I'm going to have to convey belief back to you, aka get you to buy belief in yourself, not obviously for dollars, but for emotion or interest. And so in order to become good at coaching, you're going to have to be good at sales. Like, there's just no way around it. And if I got to get you to squat below parallel, I'm going to have to get you to believe that you can in fact squat below parallel. That is a sale right there. And maybe you'll tell me why you can't. And guess what that is? That's a sale back. And if I buy it and I believe you because of whatever knee surgery or pathology or trauma you have, I'm like, well, at least it doesn't squat below parallel. Like, that's a sale. I just bought what you were selling. Right. So there's that part of it. But as it applies to really what we do, it is the first place, the most important place, where you can demonstrate your difference, and you can demonstrate your quality, your professionalism, your value, your care. Right? Like, everybody throws the word care around and community around and all these things, but like, if you don't use inspiration instead of manipulation, you can't possibly tell me that you care about me. It's not possible. I mean, you might actually care if I succeed with the program that you're giving me, but like, you don't ultimately care about me because you never asked about me. You just assumed about me. And so it becomes the first most important part of the journey, in that if you're going to stay with somebody for a long time and you're going to create a relationship and you're going to transform somebody's life, we know one thing: they got to be here for a long time. And so if we know that the likelihood of success in CrossFit increases exponentially over the duration of time, so most important thing to do is to keep you here as long as possible, right? And so manipulation in and of itself is short-term win, long-term losses. You will get people to take short-term action, but their long-term likelihood of retention or attention rather is relatively low. They'll pay you money now, but they don't last very long. And that doesn't work very well in CrossFit, because we know this is the right thing. It's not the quick thing. It's the thing that they need. And so inspiration is almost always short-term loss, long-term win, or short-term hard, long-term easy. And so it's very different. And so if that is the ultimate goal, is keeping you here longer, because all of you guys are in the utilization business, the more you can get people to take advantage of your services or show up for your services, the more successful they're going to be, more successful that they are, more people that end up getting referred, etc. So if we know that to be the case, you need to get them to come more often or come longer. So that requires the relationship to start off the right way. And so if you choose manipulation at first, you'll be sacrificing the conversation, or rather sacrificing the relationship. But if you choose inspiration, what you're really doing is starting off in a relationship. And I think this is where sometimes the money becomes hard, because when we sit down with people, we feel a little bit weird about potentially caring about you, because then it's like you cry and I cry and we're crying together. Then I have to say $750 to get started. That feels like an emotional debit, right? But it's not, right? Because you also have to understand that once it comes time to move past your value and it comes time to convey your value, value is conveyed in money. Like, that's just the agreed upon medium that we've all accepted as a demonstration of value of X, Y, or Z. Like, the reason why some cars cost substantially more than others is because we agree that car is in fact more valuable, aka it costs more money. So you do all this work and you sit down and you do all this caring and all this stuff, and then the next words out of your mouth are, so what would you like to sign up for? 2 times a week, 3 times a week, or unlimited, right? All of
goes away.
all of the inspiration just got eradicated with manipulation. It's like, I thought you cared about me and you just hit me with the same thing you've given to everybody else. Why aren't I special? Like, special looks like a one-off program. Special looks like a one-off price. Special looks like, I don't know what we're going to do. Here's what I know it's going to start with. And so when it comes time for price, your price must convey the level of quality that you are going to provide. And so this is such a huge problem, because I get it. 10 years ago, 150 was that a Ferrari in the gym space? Today, it's a soup kitchen.
Yeah,
truly. I mean, not only because, like, for years we were talking about, wow, inflation was going to steal your lunch, but now it's quite literally stolen everybody's lunch. You can't even go to the grocery store. But now people are listening. Like, 150 is not it. And not only is it not it because it's not enough money, is that if you tell somebody 150, they just thought they were ready to buy the Ferrari, and then you rolled up the new Honda, right? And they're just like, oh, that whole sales pitch, and you're gonna hit me with a Honda, right? Like, you must bring the value, and the value requires $1. And I know nobody wants. I'm with you. Like, we all want it to be true that, like, people, it shouldn't be about the money. I get it. It just is, because we all trade in it every single day. We all believe in it every single way. We all use it every single day. I didn't even mean that to work that way, but it did.
It's a clip.
Make that a clip. Do that thing Lisa does. But and so you have to make sure that is in fact the thing. Ernie is excited about sales too. You have to make sure that is in fact a thing that is conveyed when you open your mouth and talk about the price point. And so you got to figure out what the number is. I don't care what the number is, but you should know what the number is based on your math, based on the science. It's the data that you need to come up with the price point. Because if you just open your mouth and throw out a number that is arbitrary, you don't believe in it. That's also manipulation. You should be very confident in that. I must charge you $750 up front, because that's exactly what it's going to cost me to care about you through the next 3 months, because you're going to be all hands on. I know that, because everybody requires the most work in the first 90 days. So don't try to stretch them out for the long term by charging the least amount of money for the longest period of time. Charge them what it's going to cost you to put the work into them that they're going to need to be successful in the first 90 days. And then you can lower their price point for the duration, because it will take less work. But as it applies to the price point you charge them, it doesn't really matter. You can decide that. Anybody can. The thing you're going to always have to grapple with, everybody has to grapple with, is feeling guilty about asking for money. And so if you understand that you're not asking for money, you're simply taking a deposit on the relationship that you guys are agreeing upon. Like, you can't possibly bring in every single client. Like, there's no way to do that. And so if you know what it's going to cost, and you believe in that cost structure because you know what the expenses are, and you've done your best to get them down to the lowest number to do the most amount for the least amount of money, then you can ask it. And if they say no to that, it's much easier to start higher and go lower if you have to. But I promise you, if you put the work into the care and you go higher, and they believe in you and you believe in them, what you're going to do is put the price point directly in line with the value of the solution that they're aligned with, right? So if we sit down and you tell me, and we start talking about getting off of medication and off of the couch and changing lifestyles and legacies, et cetera, and you hit me with 150 or 200, I'm just going to be like, I don't believe anymore, right? But if you say 750 or 1,000 or 1,500, that might sound like a lot of money to you as the person doing the sale, because you would never pay that, but you're not in pain anymore. So when you say it to them, that's probably a lot more likely in line with being like, well, I mean, if you are going to get me off all that stuff, I would have expected like this is a radically different thing than I've ever done before. And so this price point makes complete sense that it wouldn't be completely different than what I'm used to. But if you hit me with a price point that seems a lot like what I would expect to pay for a gym membership, because it's what I've always paid for a gym membership, but you're going to tell me it's going to be different this time?
How?
Please, right? So the price point is not about, feeling guilty. It's you have an ethical obligation to charge them in line with the accountability that you're asking. And one thing that is very controversial, I think, is that you should absolutely consider charging people's upfront fee in relation to their level of affluence. Because I'm telling you right now, and there's people in your gym I know that make more than $500,000 a year. If you charge them $250 up front, and we've got to get their whole life together because they haven't, had sex with the lights on in 5 years, and you hit them with $250 to get started, that's not even in the realm of pain for them. You need to make it painful so that you can hold them accountable. And that's going to look like, I need $10,000 up front from you. And they're going to be like, but that's more in line with this dude is the dude that's going to change my life.
And I think we get
that's an advanced tactic. So let me be very clear. I'm not telling you to go charge prices based on everything, but there's a confusion there.
We get stuck in that. Here's my menu. This is what I do. Someone's going to come up. We become almost like the Chinese restaurants. Like, well, rice is this price. This is it. If you're coming in, I'm going to give you rice. This is what I'm going to charge you. Rather than, okay, let's see what you need. And I think something that's so often, two things that I thought about while you were speaking then, that are often overlooked is the fact that when we're having those sales interactions or those potential new client interactions, we bring across firstly our own trauma and scarcity. If we're already broken, struggling, we're like, well, I don't have $250 to spend. Why is someone going to spend $750? And we bring that and we overlay that. We look at the person we're talking to and we overlay our own stories, limiting beliefs and bullshits onto them. But I think also a powerful element of having this conversation, and also I think it's part of the coaching conversation, is you have to be prepared to be vulnerable and be seen in that conversation as like, if we want to see the client, we've got to allow them to a degree to see us and be open to that. And I think that's where we struggle, because it's like, no, I've got to be the professional. I've got to be this. I've got to be that. I've got to control everything in this interaction because I'm the expert. Whereas having that vulnerability element and sharing things makes that whole interaction a more human interaction, where it is easier to transfer that belief and people will feel that is genuine, rather than, oh, you just said it's going to be different, but now I feel like it's just going to be the same as the other things I've really sucked at.
It's an insecurity conversation more than it's anything. And nobody that's listening to this wants to believe that they're insecure, because that's the nature of insecurity. But the truth of the matter is that it all goes a little bit deeper than that. And it is that we all have a fundamental flaw as it applies to education. And that flaw is that, and I've talked about this before, is that those of us who are Westerners, I don't know at what point you become an Easterner versus Westerner, but the Western world, it's so strange. It's always so hard for me to grasp that concept. But the Western world, particularly, and maybe even now the Eastern world, but we are trained, taught, and convinced that education is about ownership. But education, information, etc., is not about ownership. It's about application of information. It's not about, I possess this information. And that's the thing, right? When we learn something, we have this belief that I own it, and that's what makes me special because I have this knowledge and it is mine, and it is, and that's what makes me valuable. And so when you sit in a situation of insecurity with a new person, you attempt to try to get out all of this knowledge that you have to help them understand that you are in fact in possession of all of this information. You must be like the second coming of whatever deity you worship. That's not how any of that works, right? CrossFit in and of itself was never even built on that model. CrossFit revolutionized fitness for a lot of reasons, but primarily one of the main reasons was that it came in and it was open source. It gave away all the information for free. And then somewhere along the line, as mass adoption happened, we brought this mass understanding of information back to the conversation when everybody tried to possess their level 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? That makes me special. And so it's a natural thing when somebody who has that fundamental belief about information, when you sit down with that person, they're going to try to impress you with that which they own, right? They're going to tell you about their certifications, their accreditations, their acronyms after their name. But the person who is extremely advanced doesn't say anything at all. They say, when do you want to get started? And then the average person will probably be like, well, what are we going to do? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Like, well, I don't know because I've never seen you do anything. I've got to learn a lot more about you before I'm going to ever tell you. Like, that right there would be a radically different conversation to anybody who sat in your chair, because they'd be like, because what's happened, they have walked into probably dozens of gyms at this point, and dozens of people have opened their mouth and proceeded to try to impress them with their knowledge instead
giving
of
them the spiel,
simply just applying the knowledge, right? And so if you think you have as much knowledge as I know you have, stop trying to explain it and impress people with it and start trying to apply it. And it's going to be worth a lot more money. And that's just the whole thing about creating a training program or selling a training program. And most of that is just, it's an accidental error, in that we think that like that's what we're supposed to do, because it's an attempt for us to try to seek or create validation through, our education, our ownership. But all it's ever mattered is nobody cares about what you know, right? They only care like why you do it, right? And like that's a very esoteric way of saying they don't care about what you know, they only care about how you apply it. Like, I've never sat down with any one of you guys that have come in and been like, here's what we're going to do to fix your business. How the fuck could I know that? There's no way, right? Like, I have to know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and really where you're trying to get to, that I could be like, okay, this is what we're going to need to work on. Right? But
when you see the behaviors, it's, generally what most people will tell you when they come in for that first consult is not actually what's happening. Like, how many times have we in the gym setting, you've sat across from someone and go, okay, well, how's your nutrition? Yeah, I eat pretty well. Okay. And that's, once you start digging in, that's not necessarily the case. But people will come in and put their best front forward. The art of the coaching then is to be able to get behind that, but also giving yourself the pause is like, I don't know until I really have a look at what's happening here.
Yeah. So the challenge I would issue to
okay.
listening to this is simple. I would say, step one, I challenge you to learn the difference between training and coaching, and understand the gap in where you're at to move towards coaching. Then I would tell you that for your next sales appointment, to talk as little as possible, literally time it, watch it, record it, do whatever, but say absolutely nothing. And when you do talk, I'll challenge you to not talk at all about what you're going to do with them, and instead ask them what they would like to get out of it. If you can do that, and then you can follow with my third challenge, which is charge them more than you are comfortable, because I already know you're not charging them enough. So I'm not saying just go gouge somebody, but charge them more than you're comfortable, and then say nothing. Tell them the number and just say nothing. I bet you'll be shocked with the result. So the moral of the story is, speak less, listen more, charge what you're worth, get them started. That's it. You don't have to impress them.
Yeah, and that's where we trip over. We feel like we have to be the expert, the knowledge, and demonstrate our expertry, rather than, to steal a line from our good friend Tosh, is that, mastery is being able to sit and observe and to work the nuances, rather than feeling like I need to be an expert and show everybody what an expert I am. Just take the time. All right. Not the first time I've heard that.
Almost everybody's sales. Truly, yourselves and everybody else's. Just shut up. Just stop talking. Let them talk instead. And I bet you everything gets much better.
And it's funny, I did actually say that to a client the other day. They're like, how do I get my initial consult down from, 60 minutes? Like, well, you're talking. So you need to stop. And they're like, oh, then what are we supposed to talk about? I mean,
Well, don't be surprised
ask
if
a
you stop
question.
talking. They might always go 60 minutes because once people start talking, they love to talk, but that's okay.
Mm,
Learn as much as you can about them in that conversation. The goal of your consult should be to learn as much about them in the conversation. It's not for
mm,
you to tell them as much about you. And that is a complete shift. And you have to get to that point.
yeah. Awesome. And this has been a bit of an insightful chat. And I'm sure that our watchers, viewers, and listeners will, as always, get some good stuff out of that. If you want to reach out to us and give us some feedback, continue the conversation, you can follow us at FitFiliate on Instagram. That's where we live and hang out. And we'd love to have a chat with you about any of this sort of stuff if it's a struggle for you. All right, good sir. As we see the lovely scenic snowy background behind you, we'll
Today,
see.
finally.
Yeah, it looks nice. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please remember to like and subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you know an affiliate owner, a coach, or entrepreneur that would benefit from hearing our conversations, please share this with them. We love the feedback and support we have from you guys, our audience. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find all the useful links in the show notes. We would love to connect with you. Keep doing the great work.